Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast with Mastermind Advisor Marketing. I'm Vince Oldry. I'm here with Josh Woodward, and today we're going to talk about the number one issue with most seminars and webinars, why most advisors can't get them to work as well as they should, and also the number one thing that your marketing firm or FMO is telling you to do, but you're probably not getting good results with. So I'm not here to beat them up. I'm just here to tell you, because I've tried it, what is going on, what's going wrong, and how to fix it. So the reason this came up, though, Josh, is we're working with an advisor, and he's struggling a little bit for people to show up to his appointment. And so you know how we look at things, we problem solve by stages. So we go, if we're not getting people to download the guide, then we know it's the ad. If they're downloading the guide but they're not registering for the webinar, then we know it's our landing page. If they're not attending the webinar but they're registering, then we know it's our automations and our reminder sequences. And then if they're attending the webinar but they're not booking appointments, then it's the webinar, right? And if they're not staying with the appointment, then it's probably some more automations, or that's the webinar, right? So a lot of that is involved here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we break everything down in stages. It'll be good to go through this. Like you said, we've just experienced a couple of advisors that were, I wouldn't say complaining, but making more of a statement on the show rate to their appointments. I've had a couple the other day that were just asking about the numbers, right? And like everything I look at and how we build it is always beginning to the end of the funnel. Yes, we have the process, right? But then how do we dissect it and make it suit the advisor the best possible? And so it's cool that we're doing this podcast. It's perfect timing because this is kind of where a lot of advisors that have started with us, a month or so ago are kind of at. They're like, man, I'm getting appointments, but they're not showing. Or man, everyone's showing up to the webinar, but I'm not getting the appointments I thought I was. And so this is perfect to go over this. You hear it sometimes in seminars, but I feel like if anyone sticks to our PowerPoint and stuff like that, it makes it a little bit easier, right? Like you can make these mistakes that we're going to talk about and still somewhat be successful. But with webinars, man, it is so key to make sure you hit these at just such a solid level. So you want to talk about
the simple fix is what we do is we just stick my webinar in there and get them appointments. Sorry, like when we want to prove a point, we'll go prove the point, right? It's not the system, it's you. Sorry. So unfortunately, like we already know how to, combat that, or fortunately we know how to combat that, because that's what some of these guys, it's a stroke to their ego, right? So they think they want to have all these accolades and all these other things, and it's a good thing for the ego. But then all of a sudden I come in, I'm like, no, you suck. Sorry. And I'm just knocking their ego down. And I'm not trying to do that on purpose, but sometimes we have to step back and say, you know what? It is me. I have to fix me, not that guy's program doesn't work, that guy's program doesn't work, that guy's program doesn't work. Well, we need to start looking into the mirror a little bit and look at, okay, why isn't it working? Oh, maybe I'm not following the program to the way it's supposed to be designed. Because we get this a lot too. We have a lot of advisors that think they know better, right? They think they have a marketing strategy that's better and they want to try that. And we say, fine, go try it. And usually, not always, every now and then we find someone that strikes better than we do. Usually, it's not going to work. And that's why this is the biggest thing, though, the biggest flaw that we see that ruins it for everybody and for most advisors is they talk about themselves.
Yeah, this is definitely mistake one.
It's the biggest mistake. I was going through a bunch of the webinars here recently. I was watching all of them, and every single one of them started off talking about them and what they're doing. And one guy, he goes, oh yeah, risk. There's a lot of risk out there. Trust me, I know. Why should I trust you? Who cares? Like, what do you mean just trust you? Like, give something to back it up, at least. There's nothing there. So what we find is that a lot of people do not have success in the webinars and in the seminars because they're using themselves. They think they are the brand. They think they are the person, right? But the whole point of the webinar and the seminar is for you to educate them, to give them some free information so that you can show them you know what you're talking about, for them to then want to ask you, hey, can we talk more? You seem to know what you're talking about. I really want to talk with you. Okay? Now, I remember when I was in Sacramento, California, I worked at this FMO called the Annuity Store at the time. It was owned by Allianz Life. I was going through my CFP classes. And it was at the Sacramento college, like there's a off-site college. And a lot of the guys that were teaching the class were financial advisors. One was a CPA, one was a financial advisor. Actually, I think a couple of them were financial advisors. I know one worked for LPL. But I remember talking to some of the people in the class. A lot of them weren't even trying to be a CFP. A lot of them were just wanted some education as they were approaching retirement. And the funny thing is, a lot of them afterwards approached those professors, right, those financial advisors, to see if they could help them. Now, in the entire class, not once did they sell a product. They educated us on all these different products. And then all of a sudden, people were asking, hey, can I work with you? And I'm like, geez, that's the whole thing right there. They're just educating people. They find them as an expert. They like what they're talking about. And then they ask them, hey, can I work with you? Now, here we are talking with a lot of financial advisors, and they're trying to ask people to work with them. It should be the other way around.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you bring that up, and I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but I think it's something else to bring into it, because I think this is where the IMO, FMO kind of coaching comes in on that side of things. But when you're meeting that instructor or they're giving you those educations, I'm assuming, and this is kind of, I think one of the mistakes ones is like, everyone's like, I was featured on 101.3, the radio station, right? Or I was on the Sunday morning TV at 6 a.m. Like, I'm assuming, and I know this with webinars, right? But I'm assuming those teachers didn't start off day one of that class being like, guys, just so you know, I was on Sunday's television show. Or, hey, just so you know, I have an article written in Forbes, that kind of conversation. I'm assuming the teacher came into more of like, this is what you're going to learn. This is why you should learn it. All right, let's go learn that.
Right. Here's what you're going to learn. Here's what's in it for you and how it's going to make your life better.
And we've talked about this before in the past too, man. Everyone's selfish, right? I mean, everyone, hate to say it, but they're listening to it because they care about themselves. They don't care about who's on the other side of that webinar. They could care less that you were in Forbes. That's awesome. But it's, what am I going to learn? How will this benefit me? And you have to let that know right off the bat.
The FMOs do that as a lure to bring you in, saying, hey, we can get you on Forbes. We can get you on Wall Street Journal. We can get you on radio shows, TV shows. That's all great. It helps with your brand for sure. But it's more of a stroke to the ego. People aren't going to come in the flocks. I mean, at the end of the day, people are getting smart to that now. I mean, Forbes was something that 10 years ago, that was something that was, maybe cool. Now it's like everyone's done it, right? So now it's not that big of a deal. So people are a little bit more keen to that, and they know that you just pay for your spot in Forbes. They know that you pay for your spot on the radio show. They know that you pay for your spot on the TV show. It's not something special anymore like it might have been. When I remember, watching Melberg, right? Like, he was always on TV back in, 2010. That was a big deal. Everyone's trying to do what he was doing, but he already got there, right? So it's too late. Then you watch, there's another guy, Ty Young, I think. He was doing the same thing. He was probably ahead of the game a little bit. Melberg had more of the online presence. He was, I think he got on PBS, right? Real early on. And I remember talking to him. I think he said that it wasn't really like that much of a business boost for him, but everyone thought it was. All these advisors were like, I need to get on PBS. Oh man, I need to do that. And he told us, I didn't get much from that. Like, what he did is he repurposed it a lot though, right? He took that and then he repurposed it with his emails and his brain, as far as like retargeting campaigns and all that kind of stuff online, right? He just took that stuff, a credible source, right, that was educating you, and then he would put it all over the place. So it wasn't that people went there and watched him. It was that he used that as an educational platform to then go educate the masses, and then people wanted to work with him. It's the same thing that we're trying to do here, but the biggest mistake that people are making, and we say this all the time, that all these people are doing or trying to tell you to do, you should go talk about yourself. Who are you? What are you, what's your firm? It's so often I see, like, I started my firm back 30 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Really? Who cares?
I don't. But yeah, what you just said too is key. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be featured on Forbes, or you shouldn't have the radio show, you shouldn't have the television, but it's not to utilize to promote on the webinar, especially in the beginning. No one cares. But you can repurpose it. You can use that for an email, be like, hey, I just wrote an article on Forbes, it was featured, just wanted to send it to you to check it out. Or, hey, I just did a TV series, a lot of people were asking me a question, here's a link to it, go check it out. But when you open it up with the first relationship to someone and you're like, hey, blah, 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 with all my credentials, if anything, it just comes across and it's just, and we see it all the time. I mean, people drop off 10, 20% of the way in, right? I mean, the stats don't lie when it comes to the webinar.
It's too salesy. People aren't going to listen. So what do you need to do? Well, here's the biggest solution. One, you don't talk about yourself at the beginning, okay? You can use stories, and sometimes your stories can talk about yourself or, you're part of it, but then you need to tie the story back into them. What does it mean to them, and how, what's it going to look if they, what's it mean for them, and how's it going to work for them? And then at the end, this is what I do. At the end, I talk about myself. And I do that in my seminar too. Now, I have a story at the beginning and I have a story at the end. Both are power stories. I was just talking to an advisor that we're working with. He hasn't recorded his webinar yet. He was about to. He's asked me like how he should, what he should use for a story. He was like, well, I'm trying to think of it. And this guy, he just lost his leg, right? He just lost his, he had frostbite, and it turned into, he had to amputate below his knee, I think it was. I'm like, dude, that's a great story. And then we started talking more, and he's like, well, I'm going to do this with my granddaughter or grandkid, because my grandkid actually like smashed her skull, and luckily nothing happened as far as the brain goes, but it just took like a year to recover, so we're going to go out and celebrate. I'm like, dude, that's a great story. Like, it's a powerful story. You should use that and relate it to financial planning, and because people are going to tune in from that powerful story. But if you go off and just say, yeah, I'm doing this because my grandma, I helped her out, or my mom, I helped her out. Like, come on, we've all heard those stories. Use something that's a powerful story to help get people to come in and understand why here's what this is what happened. It draws them in. Here's what it means for you, and how we're going to help you through this class. Now, as I'm giving you this class, you need to tell people, you stop talking about yourself. You just say, look, I'm going to give you education. There's no sales whatsoever. And then you just stop. You just keep going. You keep moving through. You don't need to keep explaining it. You don't need to keep explaining what your firm does. You don't need to keep explaining what articles you've been featured in. No one cares. Why are they there?
Why are they there?
Do you know why?
100%. They're there to learn about themselves, or how they can get into a certain situation for, in our case, obviously retirement, but really anything at digital, it's more how can it benefit me?
Exactly. They're there for themselves. That's it. They're not there to learn about you. No. You're there to potentially help them if that's what they want. But you need to prove that first by giving them some powerful information. You start selling a product, you want to start selling something, look, if Josh and I wanted to create a system where people just sign on the dotted line, we could do that. But if we do that, that means we're going to commoditize it, which means we would have to do it more as like a volume deal. So we would have to reduce the costs of people. Let's say they wanted to buy an annuity, right? And we would have to eliminate so many people, for example, it would eat into so much of the commission, for example, right? There would be very little bit on the bone for us to keep. There's not a lot there, right? So the other day I was, our Facebook ads are on there and someone's like, hey, why, I've been an advisor for 40 years. If this marketing is so great, why don't you just do it for yourself and keep it a secret? What do you think I'm doing? I am doing it for myself. But the thing is, I don't have a bunch of financial advisors in my office. I don't know if I really want that. I'm working on, I tried to bring on 2 guys recently, and they don't want to work hard. I don't know. They don't want to make a lot of money. They don't want to work hard. I don't know. Probably both. But when it comes to the advisors out there, it's easier for us to help you guys, educate you too on here's how you do it. Here's how you get people in. Here's what my meetings look like. Do I get them all? No. Do we get a lot of them? Yeah. But we want to work you through a specific process, because at the end of the day, yeah, if I just hired a bunch of people in, sure. Guess what? I keep the majority of it. So, would you rather me give it out there, or would you rather me just bring it in-house? Now, I'm trying to bring it in-house technically more so. But for now, I know Josh probably doesn't like that idea. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Control, who we work with a little bit more if we bring it all in-house, right? So it makes it a little bit easier. But every time I see that question, it's funny because it's like they're just taking it away from themselves. Like, why wouldn't you just do it for yourself? It's a good idea. Actually, I might. So sorry, you can't get it. But it is funny. But in all seriousness, if we can help the masses, it's obviously advantageous for everybody, right? If I can work with an advisor, get him to where it's making him good appointments, he's meeting good quality people, good quality advice, client's happy, advisor's happy, we're happy because they're never going to leave working with us, So it's like, I've had this conversation a couple times, but it's like, I'm not doing this to be negative towards you. Like, I'm not saying you're the issue or like this, our process is golden. I'm more saying like, we've tried a lot. And what I found so far is this: start with your why, go into information and teach. At the end, talk about yourself a little bit, but then make your call to action huge. I've had advisors be like, well, I don't want to offer a free financial plan. I don't want to offer a 60-minute in-depth review of my plan. I don't want to offer a part 2. I want to charge for that. And I'm like, go ahead. You can try it, but it's not going to work. Like, I understand your time's worth X, right? And everyone says that, but my time's worth X. And it's so funny because I'm like, you'll get paid X if you just treat the whole process the way it's spelled out. Just offer. The part 2 of the class is looking at you and your process and your statements in depth. Let's spend 60 minutes. Let's look at your account, how we can help. Instead of being like, all right, well, this is my class. All right, I'm going to charge you $400. That's what I usually charge, my clients. But, today, if you sign up today, it's $200, 50% off. It's like that whole spiel. It's like, guys, it's just educate these individuals. Give as much information as you can and then teach. Just why, teach, make that call to action something you cannot turn down.
So a big example, I would say, is that's out there. He's a billionaire at this point. Grant Cardone, okay? He offers free classes. Like, he's doing something right now where he's like, I will teach you how to do this for free, blah, blah, blah. Because what is he trying to do? After he teaches you all these free things, you're going to say, I want more, or I need your help or your team's help to help me get there further, right? It's the exact same thing that we're doing. Not everyone's going to be someone that's going to sign up with us, but that's why we don't talk about ourselves at the beginning. We want to show them stuff that they're there for themselves, right? And then after they see that, hey, that's something I probably want help with. This guy seems to know what he's talking about. I'm going to use him, right? That's the whole idea. Doesn't mean yeah, there are people that charge, and we have advisors that do like a 2-day course, right? And then they charge for plans, but they just did 2 days of free planning for 4 hours total. And then they're saying, yep, now we're going to charge. Well, why didn't he charge the entire time? He didn't. He didn't have approval. He didn't have permission from them to ask that yet. Once he gave them that 4 hours, he then had the permission to ask. And that's why you don't talk about yourself at the beginning. He doesn't even talk about himself in the first 3.5 hours of this class. He talks maybe a little bit about him, just saying, hey, I'm a financial advisor. I know what I'm talking about. So as we're going to go here, I'm going to teach you all these things. But just so you know, I'm a financial advisor, so I know what I'm talking about. All right? You don't need to go into like, I have 200 million under management, or I got, saying you're a CFP or certified financial planner probably helps a little bit there. But you don't need to go into too much depth on what you are and what you do, because no one cares. And it's the one thing I know, like a lot of people were taught to talk about themselves at the beginning. And this happened because of the seminars. The seminars, for a lot of the dinner seminars, we are stuck, or the people that are there, they're stuck, right? They don't get the dinner until after they watch your seminar. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to listen to you talk about yourself for the first 10 minutes. They have to. They can walk out and not get a meal, I guess, but they have to. They're stuck there. They're going to watch it. They don't care.
Yeah, and the 2 days in person, right? So it's like you're there in person, building that rapport, talking to them after the class, all that stuff, right? And that's like you finally earn, like you said, the ability to ask. And so when it comes to that, by all means. But on a webinar stands, it's like you just got to be careful. Just provide as much value as you can, and hook them in with the story and the reason why.
Well, you look at these life insurance companies like Ethos and Select Quote. What do they built? They built a machine, right, where they have so much advertising. Guess what the advisors get paid? They don't get paid much at all, right? Because they commoditize it. They made it basically an automated system. Same thing with the like Rocket Lawyer and all those other, computerized or the online versions of your even doing your taxes, right? TurboTax, all those other things. It's all automated. Are you getting the full help that you need? Probably not. Are they making much money? Yeah, they're making a lot of money. Does it cost them some money? Yeah, it costs them some money. But that's why when people ask, hey, why don't you just do it on your own? Well, okay. Josh and I have talked about it. Like, why don't we just hey, we know how to do it. Why don't we just commoditize and just do a super high volume? Okay, let's go build it. But that's not, how our system is. We've built this to meet with higher net worth prospects. Higher net worth prospects is not something you can technically commoditize as much, right? They need a little bit more hand holding. They have a lot more complicated of a situation than just buying life insurance or buying an annuity. They want the whole thing done for them with the big picture in mind. They don't want just to walk in and buy a CD at a bank. If you want to give them a CD at a bank or just a fixed annuity, that's easy to do. But if you're trying to get the whole thing, you need to give them a financial plan. You need to build them a retirement plan. But there still has to be some work involved. Okay. So to help advisors out, don't talk about yourself at the beginning. Show them you know something. Give them some free education, and then you can ask for the appointment. Okay? No one cares if you've been on Forbes. No one cares if you're on the radio. No one cares if you have a TV show. I'm sorry.
Very true. But go ahead.
I should say.
I was just gonna try to lessen that I don't. No one cares stuff. But I was just gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can still repurpose all that stuff, right? Like it's cool that you're on Forbes. Like Vince, I know you were in some articles.
Yes.
They're hanging on your wall. I think. In the hallway or something like that. Like it's cool to purpose that, but it's not it doesn't give you the right to be like, I'm on Forbes because now you owe me an appointment, or I was on this radio show, so now you owe me to set time with me. It's all, it's not, so there's just that. You can utilize it, build it, do it, but just use it in a different way than using it as like you owe me now because I'm on Forbes. People with higher net worth, more than likely they know how you got on Forbes or how you got on radio. Vince, I think, mentioned it even in the podcast, early in the podcast. They Hard network people know you paid for that, right? Like, yeah, it adds credentials because you made it, but they know like it costs you X. So cool, but how does that benefit me, right? You're on Forbes, but how does that help me? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't help them at all. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I have those hanging up in my conference room. I just use that as like credibility pieces. It's like I've been featured on U.S. News or Yahoo Finance or whatever, and I did work to get on those though. Like I was actually interviewed and that
and
kind
it's
of thing.
also not like
It wasn't like I paid for
not
that.
you're saying like in the web, like
No, I
webinar,
did
like,
pay
oh,
for a
look,
subscription.
or in your client appointments, like, oh look, just so you know, I'm I wrote all these cool books. It's not you're not doing that. So it's just different. You utilize it,
Yeah.
but yeah. You see this?
You should work with me because
I have,
see,
actually.
look at all those
I
back
wrote
there.
I wrote all my books.
Yeah.
It's just funny, and we see that. Yeah, it can be there.
It's
it
a
can be in the
credibility
background,
piece.
but you're
Yeah.
not making that claim or that call to action or wasting
We-
people's 5-minute time, spilling out your guts on all that stuff.
When people hop onto a webinar or in a seminar, you have a very short window
And keep
to
it.
capture their attention. Very short window. And then keep it, right. And they always say you win or lose by your opening and your closing. Everything else in between doesn't matter. Right? You could talk about random stuff. Like you could talk about, well, I don't like sleep and stuff like that. Like just completely random. And it probably won't matter. I mean, maybe it does. But they say that your opening and your closing are the only things that matter, right? So give a powerful story that can help them relate to it. Not just don't do as like my grandma, my mom, like use a powerful story that people can relate to. I thought Michael's was pretty cool with, I mean, it's not cool, but his grandkid
It's gone through some
crushing their
battles.
skull, basically, like,
It's a crazy story. Yep.
Yeah, but like you get into it. Like he starts talking about, I'm like, dude, that's your story right there. You need to use that as your story. Because I was with Shannon, and him and I are just like,
Literally just started
like,
working
just-
with us, and I think everyone in our office
Whoa,
already loves him.
really?
Loves him just because of what we've heard his story go through and how he explains it. So it's like, yeah,
yeah, he already lost a leg, and then he's not worried about his leg as a story. I'm like, dude, your leg's a cool story. I mean, not that it's cool that you lost a leg, but but tell me your story around your leg, right? Or tell me your story around your. And he was just telling me, oh, we're going up to visit my grandkid. It's been 1 year since the accident or whatever. And I'm like, that's a really cool story. You should use that. That's powerful. People are going to draw into that. So when you're doing your seminars, same thing. I use my kid as part of my story about how he had a liver hemangioma, which is a tumor of blood vessels attached to his liver. That we thought that if they thought that if that thing burst, it could potentially kill him. We also thought it was cancer at one point, and I was just a wreck when I heard that potential there was cancer. And so like people really kind of, you can just see they just get these stares when I'm doing my seminar. I'm talking about it. They're just zoned in. Everyone comes up to me afterwards, and that's something they talk about. When they come into the meeting, it's something they talk about. It sticks with them because it's a powerful story. It's true. It's a true story. So that's the other thing before we get going here. Make sure it is a true story. Okay. I was watching one of the webinars here that a guy did recently, and he used my story. So we talked about how like his dad passed away, but it was like my slide. Like, sorry, like it doesn't help you, because it doesn't seem authentic, right? It doesn't come off truthful. Or at least when I watch, it doesn't come off truthful. I don't know if anyone else watches it, if it comes off truthful, but part of the reason why a lot of people like to work with me is because they like that I'm authentic, that they like that I'm trustworthy and that kind of thing. If you come off salesy and you come off more for yourself rather than to help them, then that's probably not going to help you. Okay. So stop doing those same old things that everyone else has told you to do. Don't start off talking about yourself because no one cares. it's good to talk about yourself at the end. And then lastly, make sure you use a powerful story. A powerful story is going to get that hook. So those are the two things that you need to do to make sure that your seminars and webinars are going to work.
Best part is
anything else to add there,
at the
Josh?
end of the day is when you create that story, like Vince just said about his child or about his dad, it makes you also human, right? You're not just a sales guy trying to poach money. It makes you human, and they can relate because now they're like, oh man, this guy's an actual person. Just that person connectivity, and that's all that builds. So at the end of the day, that's what that is, and what Vince just cleared up is exactly what this podcast was meant to do. And then when Vince was telling that story about his kid, I was just like, man, just made me realize like the biggest part of that whole thing outside of just hooking someone into the webinar is like they all of a sudden realize, oh, this man is real on the other side. So very key.
Yeah, it's all the same things that we say even in when we do our meeting, our appointments. You need to use stories so people can relate, right? So all this that you do, all your meetings, all your seminars, all your webinars, you need to relate with people. You need to use powerful stories. You need to stop talking about yourself and help them, and not, if you help people, you're going to help yourself too. So if you like this podcast, make sure you go to our YouTube channel and watch our other podcasts that we've done where we show you some marketing tips and how to do the funnels. And otherwise, make sure you subscribe or bookmark our podcast. And if you need any help or would like to reach out to us, go to mastermindadvisor.com and you can schedule some time with us. All right. So until next time, Josh,
Awesome.
we'll see you later.